I guess, happy dinner time to my friends in South Downs. This is weird. I'm off script and I don't like it. But welcome to Kal-bardr's Corner for this episode of Coffee with Kal. I am Baron Kal-bardr Gellir, companion of the Meridian Cross, companion of the Argent Comet, companion of the Compostela and Reaper, coming to you live from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. I want to first off apologize to anybody who tuned in yesterday or tried to tune in yesterday. We had a slew of computer problems that I'm actually still having. I'm actually on Lady Kisa's laptop tonight because mine is still not wanting to work right. So we're making it work. Fortunately, we StreamYard is all browser based, so I was able to switch over fairly simply. Yeah, so thank you for watching. Thank you for those tuning in tonight. I know this is a weird time for me for the show. And for those who couldn't catch it or catch things later, thank you also for catching up. Now, since today's show is coffee themed, we have to talk about our beans. So tonight I'm drinking a light roast with no beans or sugar or creamer. Okay, it's water. I'm drinking water tonight, guys. I am still catching up on my hydration from over the weekend. So for those who may not know or haven't seen posts, this weekend was a Meridian Grand Tournament here in Meridies. It's one of our biggest events that's not Crown List or Coronation, right? It's our big to do, and more about that later. But I apparently did not get nearly enough water this weekend, so cheers. Water's good. Water's important. Also, it's 8 o'clock here, so probably drinking coffee this late is not the best plan. All right, so I guess now the introductions are out of the way. Now that we've introduced the coffee properly, let's get into the topic of the night. And of course, if you're watching out there, let us know you're watching, or let us know, the royal us, me and my cat here. I'm sorry, guys. It's been a long day. Let me know you're watching in the comments. Say hi. Tell me who you are, where you're from, that sort of thing. Ask questions. Throw comments in there. I want this to be very much a conversation. Apparently, I look like death in one of the pictures. Thanks, Dad. I looked bad in my pictures. That's what I want to hear from my father. I drank a lot of water. I can't help it that my body doesn't want to keep it in because I was sweating a lot. I'm going to start talking about MGT this weekend, and then we'll get into tradition, which is what this show is actually about. Today's tradition. So MGT is a weird event here in Meridies. It's one that was started 17 years ago. I think this is the 15th year because they've missed a couple. 15th version of MGT. And it is a event settled around pomp and circumstance and pageantry and just the love of the fight, the love of the tournament, right? All of the big stuff where there's pressure to win, and it's a really big tournament to win, but there's no job with it. You get a cool prize. It's really cool prizes, it's really cool stuff at it, but it's more just about the honor of winning and the honor of being there. It's had a really great weekend. It was an amazing time. It was actually my first MGT fighting, and I did way better than I thought I would ever do. I actually got to make the final tournament, which is you have to win one of the other tournaments or be selected to do that. And it was a really good day. But going into MGT, I was thinking about tradition. And here in Meridies, we talk about tradition a lot, and it's gets brought up as the reason we do things, right? Well, the SCA has been going on we're in 56 year now. And we've done a lot of stuff over the years that has been because tradition. And I hear that a lot, especially here in this kingdom. And I've been chewing on that. And I thought about it going into this weekend because MGT is built around tradition. It's built around honoring the past, honoring the memories of those who've come before us, living up to the expectations, all those things, right? And I thought about that and it was sort of thinking on what that means. And I have to admit something to you, my faithful viewers, that I went into this episode a week ago with the attitude of tradition is stupid. I'll be honest. Because in Meridies and in the SCA as a whole, but I'm speaking from a very Meridian-centric specific position here. Tradition gets used as a cudgel. It's used as a weapon. It's used as a reason we do things no matter what. Even if it's bad things or dumb things or not the best idea for things. We get told, well, we have to do X, Y, and Z because we've always done it that way. And boy, do I hate that. God, I hate it. I hate that is a reason, right? And I hear it every time I want to ask a question about something or I try to bring something up. I hear it. I'm like, oh, stupid. Because tradition is important, and I think it's a great thing to do things because we've done them that way before, until they don't work, right? So that was my starting point for this talk. Was tradition's stupid and I hate it. And then I got back from MGT and had a good day. And I heard inspired words from members of our chivalry, from the roses that were there, from talking about people. I'll name some names. Earl Richard Rafin is the one that you hear a lot in Meridies. He's one of our practically deific figures now within our fighting community, within our just traditional values. And these people, the tradition of that really set in. And these people, the tradition these people have brought on, the reason we fight, the reason we do tournaments, the reason we do pay homage to our crowns and pay homage to the society and to the roses and why these things are important, right? That tradition is important. So I again, I admit I came in with one direction, and I'm sitting here today with a drastically different opinion, but it's because I had a good day, right? And I don't want to see it through rose-colored glasses, but I think it also shows me there's two sides to this coin. Let me drink water before I forget to drink water again. Within 56 years, across the entirety of the world, right? So we've got kingdoms across the known world, across, from we have whole kingdoms that they don't speak English as a first language. We have whole kingdoms that have drastically different traditions than ours. So I spent some time out in Artemisia recently, which I see soon to be Pelican and Laurel Aslak out there. Aslak, appreciate you watching. Getting to go out to Artemisia, getting out of Meridies, right? So I've been in the South most of my life, at least most of my adult life, or actually all of my adult life. And I've been in Meridies the entirety of my SCA career. I've ventured into Glen Albyn some. I've ventured into Trimaris some, but it's not very much different when I go 2 hours either direction, right? The culture is the same, especially because Trimaris and Glen Albyn both came off of Meridies. But going out to Artemisia, I saw a whole different world. Yeah, it's still the SCA. It's still the same, dukes and counts and knights and pelicans and laurels and goofy clothes, right? It's all the same stuff. But the culture of their traditions were different, which made sense. I mean, it's not surprising to me that's the case, but I never really considered it. I never seen it. Their coronations was different. Their elevations were different. Just the culture around the event was different. Because they have different traditions. Some person or persons did something different in their history in the last 56 years, or 47 divided by 2 years of their being a kingdom. Somebody did something different, and they came from a different kingdom than we did, than Meridies spawned from, and that culture is now different. So there's nothing wrong with that. Clearly, they're happy. We're happy. We like what we do. Everybody's happy with their own traditions, and I will also admit that there are some things that they do in Artemisia, and no offense to his Majesty Sean, who's currently on camera, actually over on Coach's Corner. Which, if you're not watching SCA Coach's Corner, go check them out. Sean and Helgi and Timmer and Thorfinn all over tonight doing some video breakdowns. They were really cool to watch. But they do some things out there that are really friggin' weird and made me as a Meridian just kind of cringe a little. But it was cool. It was cool to see it, right? And I was like, man. So I got to thinking on that too. I've been thinking on that today as I was driving home from MGT, because we just got home today. It's why I'm still if I look a little tired, because I've been driving. I drove 6 hours earlier, so I'm a little worn out. But those traditions grew out of something different. I was like, okay. Traditions come from somewhere, right? It always starts somewhere. Somebody makes a change. Somebody has an idea. Somebody does something. That's where traditions come from. The thing I think the SCA does poorly with tradition, this is where I started at, was we never question them. Is we never look back to why we do a thing. So we pick a thing and we keep doing it. 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 And that's fine if it's working and we enjoy it and it's important to our culture. Cool. But when it stops making sense, when we forget why we do a thing, that's what's the problem. There's an army story. I'm sure it's apocryphal at best, but of this bench on it was an army base. There was a bench on an army base that had a guard on it, and this new CO took over the base, and he said, "All right, well, hey, new CO, this bench got to get guarded. 2 guys got to be there all the time, 24/7." Guy's like, "All right, cool." And then he got thinking, and he's like, "Why are we doing this?" So he called the last guy, said, "Hey, why are we guarding this bench?" Guy's like, "I don't know. The guy before me guarded the bench." And they called that guy, and 3 or 4 like colonels and generals, and later they found this old retired general and said, "Hey, old retired general, why are we guarding this bench?" And the general goes, "Wait, you mean the paint on that bench still isn't dry? They've been guarding this bench for 30 years because the paint wasn't dry." I mean, it clearly was. The paint was dry at that point. But the bench was guarded for that 5-minute period, that wet couple of days, because the paint was wet. And it stayed tradition. It became tradition that nobody questioned. We do that in the SCA a lot. And yeah, so Steve brought up another one. It's the cutting off the end of the ham. Why do you cut off the end of the ham? Well, because it fits in the pan. Or it did 20 years ago. The pans are different shape now. The hands are different shapes now. You cut off the end of the ham. People still do that because it fits. So when we're looking at tradition, I charge all of you to consider that and think on this. And this may be a short episode next. I think that's my thought, right? I want us to really think about that, because it's important that we keep traditions alive, and that we do things because they're important for us to do, and because they make sense, and because the SCA is a culture built on medieval culture from thousands of years ago. Or some of us a little sooner than that, but some of us a little later than that. Thousands of years ago. Cultures that are long dead, some no longer even represented on this planet. So it makes sense to carry on traditions of those places, right? And then 56 years, and however long each kingdom's been around, we've built our own traditions within each kingdom. So, seeing it in Artemisia, seeing it in Meridies, it's 2 different worlds, because we came out of different places. We were born from different places. And we have a different people influencing us. But it takes those people that are the new people coming in to question those traditions and look at them and really dig into them, either to learn about them and where they come from, or question why we're doing it and change them. If we're painting the house red, and that's what we've always painted it was red, and nobody's mad at it, okay, we don't need to question that. We don't need to question why it's red. We should, because we should know why we're painting it red. Because maybe that was the first queen's favorite color, so we're going to paint the throne red this year, because we always painted it red. But if we're painting it red because that's happened to be the color paint they had at Walmart the day they went to paint the thrones, is it important that it's painted red? Maybe it is. Maybe that's the thing we want to hold on to, right? Maybe it's even though it was a mistake that day, even though it was happened to be the paint color they had at Walmart that day they needed to paint the throne, it turned out red. But it's almost a joke now, so we're going to keep it because it's a thing that's part of our history. Cool. Perfect to do that, right? But if it's causing a trouble, if it's something that's offensive, right? So we looked at the SCA in the last year. We've made a lot of changes, and we're making a lot of changes to our culture because things we've done for years are offensive. You know, we look at things, we look at symbols, we look at titles. The title of Master and Mistress in the SCA is being used less and less because to some those titles are offensive. It's not as common as other offensive things are, but that's a good example. Gendered titles, Lord and Lady is being replaced in pockets by Armiger or Noble. These are traditions, right? The tradition of Lord and Lady, Duke and Duchess, Baron and Baroness, these are things we've used, right? That are now becoming less accepted because other people are being involved in their game. Other people are being willing to speak up. So when we're looking at those traditions, we need to make sure that we're looking at them on why we did them, but also on where we are now, and is it important to keep the thing versus important to change it for a greater good, right? That makes sense. Let me get some water. Also, I see we have somebody from Lowcock watching. Hi there. Hi, Australia. How you doing? Or New Zealand, whichever part of Lowcock you're in. I'll actually talk about that in a little bit. I have some news for that. So Sifa asked, why is it important to keep it? Why should we maybe change it? I think that's the question. That's what I'm looking at. And I think that's regardless of the why, regardless of the answer to these questions, right? That's the question we need to ask: is why is that tradition important? Whatever the tradition is, whatever the rule is. And let me get off outside of the box of tradition, right? Because we hear, I think when I hear tradition, I think of the pomp, the circumstance, the pageantry of the SCA, right? The pretty stuff, not necessarily the business side. But the business side actually is affected by this a lot, and maybe even more so than the role play side, right? And I've talked about this pieces of the SCA in past episodes. The business side gets affected by tradition a lot. Who we comp for events, how we manage certain reports, how we document rules. Like so, Osprey has an event called Gadalop, which is in October. Which anybody who's in around the Mobile area or in Alabama, Gulf Coast area at the end of October for Halloween, you should come to Gadalop. October 31st, I think is the date that weekend. It's also going to be the Meridies Coronation weekend. Osprey's hosting it. It's going to be a ton of fun. There's Lady Keith is doing a scavenger hunt. Steve will be working the Exchequer tent or the gate tent. I'll be there being fancy like I do. So yeah, come down for Gadalop. It's a ton of fun. It's in a fort, guys. Like you can't it's in a Civil War fort. How cool is that? It's a fort. But we do a thing for that. We have treaty households, and these treaty households are people who help run the event and who've been running the event for years as part of our local group, and they get certain rights because they're part of a treaty household. Something that's done by tradition for 10, 12 years now, probably. But it's just tradition that's been passed on. It's strictly oral tradition. Nobody's ever written down anywhere. It's just what we do, how we do things, right? And I'm not a fan of just because we do. I hate that reason. And I hear my dad laughing from a few miles away because I hate that. I hate because we do. That's just the way we've always done it. I hate that. So I questioned that recently. Got to ask folks, and that was the only reason I ever got. Right? It's a cool idea. Like I like the idea of treaty households. I like the idea of having these households, the peers in our local area involved in our event, because I think it adds something cool to an event. It adds some cool mechanics, or it could. But those things are things we need to look at and sort of evaluate on a regular basis and document well, right? If nothing else, we need to document them so we know them. So the next generation coming into these groups, know why we do a thing. So as these things get passed on from year to year, they can be consistent and we know why we're doing them and we can maintain them. And that's something the SCA doesn't do well, is documenting their traditions. Something that I think in the last year and a half, 2 years of this plague on our lands, that the content creators of the SCA have done some of. We've started documenting some of our traditions and some of our reasons and our stories. We did a whole series say a whole series of like 2 really long episodes for Misty history with the Principality of the Mists, documenting some of their history. I'm actually in talks with folks right now to start doing some more of that. Just documenting our history, getting some people telling these stories, getting these older people telling their stories, so that we know why. Like a good one from Meridies is why the proteges wear yellow belts, because the 2 of the 3 people who were at that initial discussion, at least in Meridies, which is where it started actually, at least what I've been told, are still alive and are still around here, but they're kind of old, so we're losing those stories. Short version, by the way, it's because yellow belts are really identifiable across a field, and they could go find, oh look, it's protege. It's a flag. That's what it is, right? That was the idea, so they could find their proteges really easily in a crowd. But like in 20 years, are we going to remember why proteges wear yellow belts if we don't document that somewhere? It's tradition. It's just tradition. It's what we've always done. And there's a reason, and that's a cool reason. Like it's fun. Like that's a fun thing to remember. But we need to remember that. We need to write those things down. All right. There's 11 of you watching right now. By the way, thank you guys for watching. I was expecting like 0 people watching at 8 o'clock tonight because it's a Monday. I want to hear your traditions. Give me some traditions in the comments. I want to talk about your kingdom traditions. And some maybe one that doesn't make sense to you, or one that came up was weird. I think I want to spend some time talking about traditions, because I think I consider and rant at you about it, and sometimes these coffee talks turn into just me ranting at people or ranting at the audience about my concerns with our various things. But yeah, let's talk about some traditions. I'm gonna throw one out from Artemisia that I thought was really cool, and this is not necessarily Artemisian tradition, but it's something that they do specifically that His Majesty Sean does as part of their coronation ceremonies that I thought was a cool thing to do. 2 things actually. So a thing Sean did that I think is part of their culture, but is sort of in pockets again, because crowns change things as they go. Something he did that was during their coronation ceremony, they swore fealty to the populace. The incoming crown, Sean and Nisa, swore fealty to their populace on the crowns of Artemisia. And I was like, that's cool. They didn't just put them on. They didn't just like, oh look, we're the king and queen. They swore fealty to the populace and to Artemisia before they crowned themselves. And the other bit of that was they had a brand new, literally first time in an event, people holding their crowns. These artifacts of Artemisia, these are like their original set of crowns when they became a kingdom. These things are old. And they had this first-time person holding this crown while they swore fealty to their populace among the populace. That's a cool thing, guys. Like, that was neat. I enjoyed watching that. And that's the kind of things we get with traditions, right? We get those little, like, that's a neat thing. Sean did that. Like, that was the thing Sean chose to do when he, in his first reign 76 years ago, whenever he first was king. And something he's done ever since, because it's important to him, right? And I'm sure others have picked it up. I'm sure it's been done other places. And that's something I've seen that if I ever, have the honor of winning one of the crown lists I fight in, I'd like to do, right? It's a tradition I'll pick up and bring to Meridies or wherever. And it may never stick. It may not be a thing, but it's a cool thing. I think it's cool. A little Artemisian lore for you there. So you guys anybody got any cool traditions out there? Tell me a story. I'm sure there's plenty of other Artemisians. If As still watching, I'm sure there's some more stuff out there from him. Or I'd like to hear some stories from Locac. Locac. I'm sorry, I butcher that because I'm Southern and I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong both directions actually. As a herald, I should know better, but I admit I don't. I misspelled Artemisia the first couple times I typed it, so I got fussed at for that. Let's see what other Meridian traditions we've got. I'll talk about some more. I'll tell some more MGT stories, I guess. While I wait for people to type, I'm hoping people type. I would love to have some stories. So MGT is a cool event. A thing that we do as part of MGT here in Meridies is we have an order in Meridies called the Order of the Chalice. That is it's the best of the best. It's something you have to be inducted into by the order. It's a peerage order. It's not a peerage order, but it's also an order of humility. So it's the only one you can't really get into, and there's the only piece of like regalia for it. There's a belt that comes with it, but it's like a low key order of really, really outstanding people. So they sponsor a tournament every year. That's the Chalice tournament at MGT. It's a $20 buy-in, so you have to actually donate money to the tournament to enter. The proceeds from that and the fundraiser lunch and any other donations that come in that day all go to a battered women and children's shelter in the winner of the tournament's area. So, like if I were to win, it goes to somewhere in Mobile in Osprey's territory. And that's the only prize. It's the only prize of the tournament. There is no scroll. There's no trophy. There's no medallion. Nothing. You get that. You get the honor of doing that. And I was like, that's neat. That's a cool thing. And that tournament's carried such a weight to it. And it's something that I mentioned Earl Richard Rafin earlier, and he's something he started as part of the Order of the Chalice. He wanted to do that in honor of the Chalice, and it's just it's such a power, and that's a tradition I think we should keep. Something we should do, because that's the SC. That's the giving back. It's the charity. It's the generosity of being knightly, right? Of what we're sort of all trying to achieve. All right, so we got one from down under here. So it's from the website. Cool. Okay. The Kingdom of Locock was gifted an iron nail along with the following letter: the nail. The references to Norse horse riders, kingdoms, and battles in For Want of a Nail indicate the English origins of the rhyme. The earliest known written version of the rhyme is John Gower's Confessio Amantis, dated approximately 1390. For want of a nail, rhyme for want of a nail, the shoe. Interesting. So they have a piece of regalia essentially because of some reference to for want of a nail, and it goes on. It's the thing you need to sort of start the progression. That makes sense. And that's in their coronation. That's cool. So regalia, and it's a piece of regalia, right? So they have a piece of regalia that's a nail in their regalia set, and that would make no sense out of context. But I'm sure that whenever Locock was founded, somebody made that reference and went, "Oh, we need this nail," and it became a joke, and then became tradition, right? So many things like that. That's how things. It's funny how many things are a tradition that was started out as a funny, or as a haha, look, you have a nail now, or you have here's your boot, here's the master's giving Dobby a sock, right? That's how tradition gets started. Somebody makes a reference to something like that, and that's a cool one. Let's see. Her ladyship Bruna says, "I love the tradition of Traveler's Fair on Fridays." I'm not sure if that's a very Meridies thing. That's a very Meridies thing, at least outside of pandemic times. It encourages people to spend some casual time together and rub elbows as they arrive at the event instead of just crashing. Yeah, that's cool. That's honestly, I'm curious about the Kingdoms do that. That's a very Southern hospitality thing. It's always like the Motel 6, we'll leave the light and the soup on kind of thing. There's generally always food Friday night somewhere at the event, provided by one of the households or one of the groups, or sometimes even by the feast staff, depending on how busy they are or what they're doing. But yeah, Traveler's Fair is a cool thing, and I'd like to see more done with Traveler's Fair. Actually, I think that's a tradition we can even do more with. It's that like medieval flair of the tavern, right? The always open taverns there, people coming and going, getting to have that culture. That's something I think we miss out a lot on at events, having that central gathering point that's like open, right? It's always there, because people end up being in their camps a lot, and especially on Friday nights, people are coming in late and going straight to bed and all that. So I wouldn't hate to see even more of that, post-pandemic. I like to hear more about the Traveler's Fair. Yeah, no. Okay, so Traveler's, yes. And as yes, you would love a Traveler's Fair, or a Traveler's Feast. So essentially what Traveler's Fair is in this case, and it's FARE, not FAIRE. And that matters because it's a fair. So Traveler's Fair for us is usually on a Friday night at an event. Somebody will set out food. Usually it's a large pot of soup, bread, sort of typical tavern food. So that as people arrive at the event, they have dinner. And and have that available and have some ways to gather between the hullabaloo of the setup of the event, right? So usually events are getting set up on a Friday, camps are getting erected, people are checking in, and that happens. So you forget about dinner. So having that traveler's fare, traveler's feast, traveler's food, whatever you want to call it, available is a very Southern hospitality sort of thing. But I would love to see more entertainment stuff, having the bardic circles there, having magicians and jugglers and things available at those things, and just making that a more of a central point would be really cool, I think, to do, and something that I think more kingdoms could do, right? To have that central gathering point on a Friday night, either inside or outside, depending on where the state of your event is. And obviously, a lot of this relies on having somebody to do it, having a household sponsor it, having somebody to manage the food and provide the food and all that. Like, there's obviously going to be a cost involved, but usually it's free. Usually it's the cheap stew, right? It's the thing that's easy to throw together. There's a good one. So Master Terran the Wayward, who's one of my past guests, brought the tradition of the elevation albatross to Meridies. That was yes. So Terran's from out in Arizona. I can't remember what the name of the barony is now, but when people in their I think it's Sun Dragon, maybe. I think that sounds right. It's Sun something. When they were elevated, they had a giant wooden albatross pelican, essentially statue, that they were given, and was their first pelican medallion. And it was actually cool when he got elevated here in Meridies. The people from his barony appreciated, loved him so much they shipped it to him to be part of his elevation ceremony. And he wore it for some period of time, and then ended up sending it back and got his own little wooden one he carries around and stuff. So yeah, that's a fun one. And that's something that may or may not stick, but that's something they do in their barony, and that's a cool tradition there that it was nice to get to experience here in Meridies as part of their traditions out in wherever that was, Arizona. Not sure. I'm terrible at geography. Funny story about me being terrible at geography. I was talking with Bela, His Majesty Bela from the Outlands, because I got a new indoor bike, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be biking in the Badlands because it's got one of those ride along things on the little screen. And I was like, hey Bela, I'm riding through Outlands because I thought New Mexico was in the Outlands. It's not. Terrible at geography. He thought I was an idiot, so it's okay. All right, so we got one from down under. The knotted sword. All right, it is presented to the fighter who is judged to have died most gallantly and spectacularly in each crown tournament. The trophy is a plain sword with a blade tied in a knot, mounted on a wood plaque. Nice. That's clever, because basically they're the worst fighter of the day, but they did it the best. I like that. I think that's something. So that's something right there. Okay, so dying in tournaments. So we're at fighter practice. We don't fall down. We fall down in tournaments because you're supposed to die in combat, and that's a silly thing that we do that means nothing, but it adds a little bit of pageantry to the event. That's a tradition. Cayman writes, the tradition is what happens when people say, but we always do such and such. Yeah, correct. And you're right. Well, that's what happens. That's how tradition becomes tradition, is we always do such and such, right? That's what actually when I'm talking about when I say the tradition don't change and don't ever get evaluated, because that's the answer we give. So when we're talking about these traditions, let's look at the reasons why. Let's read the reasons why we do the things, right? Because don't make it we always do such and such. Let's have the reasoning why we do them, because the reason is just as important as the tradition itself. So in 30 years, if we're looking at, the protege belt, right, for instance, and there's some reason why we can't use yellow belts anymore. There's some something happened, and yellow belts are now a symbol of our alien overlords that have tried to conquer us. Being ridiculous here, sorry, but that's a thing. Well, we don't want to wear the yellow belts of the alien overlords, clearly. So we would need to come up with a new thing. But tradition says we have to wear yellow belts. We know why. We know why they did it. So we adjust the tradition to fit our current need, but still honor the purpose of the tradition, right? Thank you, Elfric. You said it well there. If because we always have is the only reason to do something, then there is no reason not to change it. Thank you. I have no comment for that. That's perfectly said. And again, I think, and that is why we want to know why. And so, if you're watching out there and you're one of the older generation of the SCA, one of our more senior members, remember that. Please remember that we, the younger generation, are asking you why. Not because we want to change it, but because we're genuinely curious. We want to know why we're doing a thing so that we understand it better and we can appreciate the culture and the traditions that you're putting us, you're handing down to us, so that we can hand it down to the next generation and not just telling, well, we've always guarded that bench, so we're going to keep doing it. Let's find out why, right? And if you don't know, as the older generation, let's evaluate that. And let's figure out. Let's see. Other traditions. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I forgot about the most common Meridies when it freaks people the rest of the world and world out. Our crowns often die. So obviously there's always a joke about crowns leaving, crowns retiring, whatever. And Meridies, we have a surprising death tradition. Our crowns rarely ever just step down. There is generally some calamity, some large death event, some, Harry. We had one of our crowns remembered he was Harry Potter, and the Death Eaters were coming for him, and he had to run off and go save Hogwarts. Yes, that is that happened here in Meridies. I think last time our current crown stepped down, Timothy the First. I think they went off on on crusade sort of thing. They went off to handle some business elsewhere, some war, and so they didn't die specifically, but they had to leave. When our current crown took over, there was a luchador wrestling mask, and Senor Fantastico came and tried to challenge for the right of the throne. So we get a little silly here in Meridies, but again, it's tradition because that's something we've always done, and it allows us to remember the silly side of the SCA and not worry as much about, and not get entrenched in the like gritty of the king and all, and sort of the importance of that. It's that little bit of levity. So the West King does the exact opposite, right? Theirs is very important that crown passes from hand to hand, from head to head. They have an unbroken line since the start, and that's amazing, right? There's nothing wrong with either one, right? Theirs is the thing they do, and it's important to them to maintain that because they've maintained an unbroken line. Cool. That's the only reason, because they've done it, and that's fine. I think there was one where they fixed it. Jarl Thorfinn, actually, who's on camera with Sean currently, had one where he did a death scene, and it made some people upset. But as part of his death scene, he still, with his dying breath, handed the crown off and properly did it. Whatever thing that's important to them to, he crowned the next king, even with his dying breath. And that was, so he maintained tradition while still being a little fun with it. So I think that's cool. He made that adjustment. And that's why, referencing the proteges not wearing hats. Thank you, Runa. In the post-apocalyptic wasteland of the SCA, proteges now wear yellow hats. I'm happy with, yes. All right. So in the far off future, when I am the prefect in Grand Poobah of the Pelican world, and I get to decide what our proteges wear, it will be yellow hats, because yellow hats are best hats. I like a good hat. I wish I knew more of Locax and Roni's tradition. I assume Roni's your local group, or probably your, like, Barony or something. Being a 5-hour drive from our close group, we don't have a lot of contact in person. Having traditions documented would be so helpful. Thank you, Lady Katrin. Yeah, so I think that's important, right? So we have all these traditions, and we write them down. So I'll put this out there, and I'm going to close on this because I'm running low on water, and I've got some. Oh, excuse me, I've got some unpacking to do. But I'm going to charge you all this. Go out to your local groups this week, next week, this month, this year. You got it's September, almost October. By the end of this year, I want each of you to go out and find a tradition of your local group, of your kingdom, that you don't know, or that you know about, we don't know why. Find it and document it. Put it in the local newsletter. Put it in the kingdom newsletter. Come to me with it, and let's get it on video. I would love to, and if anybody wants to help me with this, I had some ideas for this. People talk to me about it, and nobody's really stepped up and wanted to spearhead it yet. About just documenting some SCA stories, right? Getting these older stories documented and recorded. Bring them to me. Let's get them on camera. Let's get them recorded so that we can keep that record. Let's do that. Let's start looking at those traditions, finding those traditions, getting them recorded, so that we can maintain that for the next 56 years, right? I want to look back at AS 100 and know why we did the thing. Pending I'm, by the grace of all that's good, that I'm still alive by that point. I want to be able to look back and see those traditions and why they're for, and also see what new traditions we've created, see what traditions have died off. So 50 years later, we go, oh yeah, I remember when our crowns used to die, and that was funny then, but we don't do that anymore because we've done some new thing. Or, oh yeah, I remember we used to wear yellow belts, but now we wear these yellow hats because alien overlords. What do you do? I'd like to look back and see that and see where we've come from. We don't have that option right now. We don't have the option of looking back to years 2 and 3, and other than some stories that have passed down over the years. And then to Aslak's point, let's start some new ones. We got a lot of young peers out there. We got a lot of, and I say young, I'm 33 now. I realize I'm no longer young. We've got a lot of younger peers coming up. We've got a lot of people that are becoming more and more involved in the running of our organization and our society. And a lot of the older people are retiring, leaving for other stuff, or just getting old. Let's start some new traditions. Find a cool thing, do a cool thing. Let's leave our stamp on the SCA. Let's make it better. Let's make it more fun. Let's make the SCA what we want it to be. Let's start our own traditions. And I know that's going to upset some folks. And I'm sorry if you're watching and you just had an aneurysm. My apologies. And to a lot of my older viewers that are watching now or in the future, embrace it, guys. Help us, help the younger crowd, help the new guys build some new traditions, and cultivate those new fun things. See, Aslak's newish one, he is Bard 24/7, a symbol that indicates you are ready to perform right now. Interesting. Okay, so he has a symbol that shows he's ready to perform. That's neat. So yeah, so like you have like a Bard on-off switch. Look, I'm ready. Boop, little flag in your hand. So that's why. And there may be a picture that came in with that. That's why. So by the way, if anybody's coming in, like I can't see pictures or like emojis and GIFs in StreamYard. So if you send a picture, I won't see it. But if you're watching on Facebook, you may see if there's pictures there or something, you'll see those. All right. Water, and then I'll do show things. Hold on. All right. Coming up next on Kal-bardr's Corner, we have, let me pull the dates. Banners. Sorry, I'm underperformed, underread tonight, guys. Here we go. Next week, Road to Retention. So Her Excellency Ramut will be back with Sir Giovanni from out in Artemisia. And I want to apologize to Sir Giovanni for having his name spelled, having his name as Sir Sergio last week. That was apparently a happenstance of talk to text. Sergio, as in Sir Giovanni, turned into Sergio in the text. So that's the banner I made. So my apologies to Sir Giovanni for that. And I'm glad I've got that corrected now. I don't have the banner corrected yet because it's on my laptop, which is not currently working. So there you go. So 10/3, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time or Central Daylight Time. Tune in for that. Ramut's first episode was amazing with Magister Bree. I'm looking forward to another one. This series is going to be great. That's that. I don't have the next Coffee with Cal scheduled yet, but speaking of our friends in Lowcock, I was invited by the hosts of Crown Between Two Roses for an interview. That'll be on Friday, October 8th at 8 o'clock my time, 8 o'clock Central Daylight Time. So sort of standard time for these shows for me. So that'll be the same week, the week following, the Friday following the Road to Retention episode. And I'll get that up on my channels as a reminder once they get that set up. So look forward to that. I'm looking forward to sitting down with those folks. Apparently, I have a following out in that kingdom now that I was unaware of. I've started seeing people popping up watching these shows. So thank you if you're watching from Locac, and you guys are awesome. I appreciate you watching. So that's coming up there. Let's see what else we got. Of course, always, if you want to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/KK Productions. Our Patreon supporters are amazing. I love the generosity that I've received from all the Patreon supporters, even people outside of Patreon. It keeps this channel going, basically keeps lights on for StreamYard. I have been able to do so much good with these platforms and just getting information out there on the various channels we've supported. And that is because of the kindness of these people. And actually, let me put that banner back up. The kindness of these people here. I just cannot say enough nice things about the folks that are here and the folks that donated outside of that. So just kudos to them and thank you to all their generosity over the last year and a half that we've been doing this. Last but not least, if you want to support us outside of Patreon, look us up on Redbubble, KK Productions. There's a Redbubble store out there that has stickers and silly other stuff like Do Nightly Things bed sheets. Yep, they're still there. It's funny. Or if you want to see me in much shorter bursts, check me out on TikTok at Kal-bardr. I owe you guys another 30-second games. I'll work on that probably this week. So, and I just put up some fight videos from MGT actually. So there's a couple out there. One of me winning, one of me losing. Figured I should balance it out. That's what I got. Anything else? All right, check my comments real quick. Oh, there's a good one. So I'll leave with this from Elfric too. Again, to the prior generations, if there are traditions you want to see preserved, traditions that are important in our kingdoms, teach us why. We need to know why so we can preserve the traditions. Thank you for that, Elfric. Yes, Melkorka, I drank this. I blame your daughter and Baron Wistrick. I'm now on TikTok because of Wistrick and Astrid. It's a thing. I'm sorry. TikTok is obsessive. All right, folks. I want to thank you all for this week and every week tuning in. I have the best audience in the world. I love all of you, and I didn't say this last week because I think I was busy just sort of getting stuff done. But in Artemisia, you guys made me like a friggin' celebrity out there. By the way, I have never felt like a celebrity in a room more so than I did in Artemisia. Just baffling to me. So thank you all for that. Thank you all for the love and just support I received out there. Thank you to Meridies for being amazing this weekend and just supporting our tournaments we had. We raised over $6,000 in the Chalice tournament. I think I missed getting that earlier. We raised over $6,000 in a single day in that tournament for people we'll never see. Right, that was the important part. There was like people we'll never know. That's a cool thing, right? It was such epic thing to see. That's the love of the SCA, right? That's the thing we want to keep. That's the traditions I care about keeping, is that love and that camaraderie and that just the outpouring of support that we give each other. Let's keep that up, guys. Document your traditions, talk about them. Let's hear the stories. Thank you all for watching. I'll be back next week with Ramut here helping her with her show, and a week after with Coffee with Cal. We're here every week. There's something I can do for you, something you want to see on the channel, reach out to me, let me know. On that, guys, y'all have a good night. This has been Cal in Kal-bardr's Corner. Peace.